Hey, welcome to First State Kopites. Is that a Sadio Mane picture? Disrupted my start already. Haitham. Okay, let's get going. It's episode 27 of season 3. This is a podcast for Liverpool supporters in Delaware and friends of those Liverpool supporters. Thanks for listening on your preferred platform. We're available on all of them. It's Monday. It's February 21st. Joined by Daz, and maybe we'll be joined by Sean, but certainly by Haitham and me, Paul. We're going to unpick the week that's just happened and look ahead a little bit to Leeds in the league and Chelsea in the League Cup in the next 6 days. The Reds have just won their eighth game in a row. They beat Inter Milan in the San Siro on Wednesday. We'll look at that a little bit. We'll talk a lot probably about Norwich because there's a lot to unpick. We'll probably touch on Manchester City and how failing we think their Premier League title chances are, not to get too ahead of ourselves. And then, as I said, we'll look at the week ahead. Hopefully, the Leeds game will be an exercise in how good it can be facing Leeds after they played 3 days ago. And then we've got the Chelsea final, lots of other things to talk about. But I'm going to start with Haitham. And take us back to the San Siro last Wednesday. A few narratives here. I felt like I heard a few people talk about how terrible we were until we brought on the subs. I felt like we had about 10 minutes in the second half, which may mirror what happened yesterday. What was your take on the game, and what were the things that you would draw out as the most important moments?
I get tired of hearing people talking about us playing bad and all of that stuff. I mean, we were at the San Siro playing the champion of Italy with their crowds, full stadium, and we came out with 3 points or a win. It doesn't, the points don't matter. A win, 2 goals, all of that. Yes, I mean, it was natural for them to be comfortable and actually, we're not playing, excuse me, Porto fans. We're not playing Porto at Porto. We're playing the Serie A champions. So it was expected that they will come out with some oomph, right? But we weathered that storm. I mean, technically, they only had 1 shot on target. I know the actual stats say they had 0 shots on target, but there's that one that hit the top bar or the post or whatever. But I mean, yes, they control the ball for longer periods of times, and we weathered that storm. We played well defensively. And then, obviously the changes were made. You talked about the turning point, and it was when the subs were made. And from then it was just wide open for us, and we capitalized on that, and we scored goals. But it gets on my nerves when I hear people, whether it's pundits or delusional fans or whatever, talking about, or even other teams fans talking about how bad we were and it was a bad match or whatever. Come on, again, going back to what Justin says every now and then, our good friend from OLC NY, just watch the 90 minutes. Look at the 90 minutes. Forget this craziness, like, we have to squeeze the life out of every team that we play. Just enjoy it. So that's my take on the match. I'm happy about the result. I'm happy that we won. And I think basically we have we've put ourselves in a really, really good position for the second leg, if nothing,
So honestly, I would not have been unhappy with a 0-0. And I think I said that to someone at about 60 minutes just before we scored. But I actually thought one of the things that was most interesting was Konate and Van Dijk looked really, really impressive. I think, I know you said they had that one chance to hit the bar, but the one thing they kept replaying that I saw was the one that Lautaro Martinez could have headed in. that would have needed to be the most pinpoint ball ever to have found his head, given how the coverage on him. And of course, he didn't get that close to it. But I thought they were great. Subs obviously made a big difference. That for me is, we've won twice in the San Siro in the same season, and that seems like par for the course for us now. That is pretty, that's heady heights in my world. So
it is, and even Paul, sorry to cut you off, but even that chance, it's a chance. Chances happen in matches.
Yeah.
That's what takes on. Even if they scored, that's fine. But we came out with the 3-4 with the win, so that's what matters.
And I'm sure we need Sean to join us to tell what the XG was, but it felt like we had other chances that didn't get remarked upon. In comparison to the Inter chances. So Daz, you've probably seen a few games that we played against Internazionale over the years, or teams from Milan. Where did this one rank? And who was your star of the show in the end? I guess.
Oh well, this one was less fun than the Nat Phillips Cruyff turn for me. But I was in terms of importance, I'd probably say that is definitely one of the more important ones we're ever going to have. You were talking about like key takeaways. For me, there's a couple. It's the return of Virgil van Dijk, and you'd mentioned what a good partnership that was, and it's incredible to see. How old is he now? 22, 23, 24? Konate, he's a kid.
Oh, yeah, 22, I think he is.
Yeah, he's a kid, and Klopp just like plops him in the middle, and he just gets on with it. It's almost like he's almost tailor-made for that. But he's playing next to Virgil van Dijk, granted, which would probably make me look good, which really doesn't take much. But it was incredible to see just how well he acquitted himself, and I think I tweeted that at some point, like it's to take a bow, son. Like that was an impressive performance. Another key takeaway is the same as it ever was in terms of punditry. It's like they all and sundry just have to have some shite to chat. It's like they can't help themselves. It's boring. Another good thing for me is like in terms of like watching that 90, my inner chimp doesn't come out as quickly and as vociferously as it was like as far as recently as like 3 weeks ago. Whereas like I'd have that angst before, although I did say to you guys in the Norwich game, I didn't have a good feeling after we went 1-0 down, but it was a fleeting feeling, and we just seem to be able to handle adversity a lot better than we did last year. That was another big takeaway, and just how spoiled for choice we are. My God, Klopp has gotten the last two sets of subs that he's made have been instrumental in shifting the match in our favor. Yeah. And I know that oftentimes, and I believe on these airwaves, you said that it's sometimes it's infuriating to watch how poorly we utilize our subs. But now it's like shooting fish in a barrel. Like he can just like close his eyes and pick someone off the bench, and that person's it has the quality to change the match. We're not looking to Tyler Morton to come on and do a job for us anymore. Like, can you imagine seeing Thiago coming on 60 minutes? Like, for Christ's sake, it's not fair. So it just feels like we're firing on the cylinders that we need to. And we just found out that we might not have Jota and Bobby back for this weekend. And I didn't skip a beat. I was like, well, it's next man up. Like I think we proved this last weekend. We can do a job with whomever. So that was my biggest takeaway, was like just how spoiled for choice we are.
Yeah.
Just we can wax a little bit ahead.
I was going to say, as an aside, I think no one is ever going to vote for us having 5 subs in the Premier League after that performance.
Nope.
Yeah. It's like,
yeah, it's
because that was scary good, right?
Yeah.
Let's bring on 3 more players. Yeah. Now you're tired, right?
Well, it's just awesome to see. Like, there's portions, and I think that this has happened to us more frequently than it hasn't, where we kind of lose our polish, for the lack of a better way of putting it. We do seem to scramble a little bit, but I think it's important that we go through that process, because, as to Haitham's point, that every team, it doesn't matter if it's Burnley, if it's Norwich, if it's whoever it is in the league, they will gain the ascendancy even if it's for a short period of time. Like, and if you let your guard down, you're going to go a goal down. Against Norwich, it was an unlucky deflection, but it's still like they had a couple of opportunities. They came at us. They weren't scared. So it's just good to see that, like, now we seem to be able to handle that adversity a little bit better. You know, and so much was made about how dangerous Inter were, and they did look good for portions, but all those opportunities everyone was talking about, they were offsides.
Yeah.
So that's a kind of an aside. That's one of the reasons I don't like to see referees not whistling it dead when they know it's goddamn well and good it's offsides, because what it does is it allows the other team to get their tail up. Whether or not they score, it's like it gives them that momentary bump that they believe that they can do it.
Yeah, I think the good thing about that, and did we talk about this last week? I can't remember. There was an interview with Fabinho at Burnley where the guy talked to him about, and we may have mentioned this last week, but I think it's worth reiterating. The interviewer says, like, oh, they had a lot of chances, and he like looks at him like, what? And the good thing is the team knows that actually these teams are not having a lot of good chances against us because they're mostly offside. But the problem, if they don't score and the game continues, they're allowed to show that much of the day as, oh, the highlight. It's such a problem for them.
But also, like, anything that did get Alisson's way, he snuffed out. Like his one-on-one defending is unbelievable. Like he's just in people's heads. Like they just can't seem to get around him.
So we do not have enough time to talk about all the magnificent players we have in our football team, I don't think. But I do want to move on to the Norwich game because there's a lot of things that we could talk about here, and I think our agenda has only like 25 items that we could have talked about with that game. And where it starts, Haitham, is with, well, here's another game where it's like, oh, for 60 minutes Norwich kept them under control. I watched that game back. It could have been 5-0 in the first half, like with a bounce of the ball in the right way. And I do think them scoring definitely like took things up a notch. The crowd was into it. Obviously, Thiago came on the field, which we can talk about. Share with us what your thoughts about the Norwich game, because there's a lot of things I think you can take away from it.
Yeah, so I did not watch the first half. I think when I got in, or I think I got in like with 5 minutes left in the first half. I had to be somewhere else. But was kind of like, okay, you know, typically around the 40th minute is when I think that we will score our first goal each and every match. That's just, I don't know, something in my head, and it didn't happen. But I mean, you know, it's a Premier League match. I wasn't worried.
Fabinho wasn't on the field. That was the problem.
Yeah, that was actually the biggest surprise. Just seeing who's on the pitch, because I didn't even get to see the lineup. But when I saw it, actually, it was kind of like a breath of fresh air. Not a breath of. It's not like, you know, I'm not happy with the lineups from before, but just seeing that the two fullbacks were not there. Fabinho wasn't there. You know, obviously Jota, Bobby were not there, and I found that they were injured. But just seeing the options, you know, like what Des was saying earlier, it was like, wow, you know, we actually have. I mean, I knew we had options, but just to see them, you know, playing and playing well and all of that, it was good. And then obviously the goal came in. You know, it could happen. It was a deflection. I think in a normal circumstance that's a very easy save for Alisson, but it happened.
Yeah.
But you know, it's just it felt to me like, you know, again, just I think we've talked about this a few times in the past, but it felt like back in was it 2019 to 2020 when we won. Basically, we go down and we come back and win. So I wasn't really freaking out, and then, you know, I knew there was going to be something up the sleeve of Klopp and Pep. And it happened. You know, Thiago came in, and, you know, the switch of formation. Des, I know you want to talk about that. But yeah. I mean, it was, again, you know, an enjoyable match. I just, you know, I guess again, just like I said a few minutes ago, I forced myself to watch the full 90 minutes before, starting to freak out and all of that stuff. So but yeah, happy with the outcome. Would have liked the clean sheet, but it was and it came from Matip, so you can't be mad at that, the deflection. So
we do want to recap a little bit because Sean's just joined us, and clearly we've had a lousy start to the game, and we need the subs to come on and help us out in this one, which would be the narrative, obviously, of the last two games. I'll go to Daz first, Sean, because we're talking about the Norwich game, and Daz apparently wants to talk about tactics. I'm really not sure about this. I heard Klopp talk about 4-4-2. And I was a bit confused about that, if I'm quite honest. But so feel free, because there are so many narratives in this game, like Salah's 150th goal, the guy called Luis Fernando Diaz scoring his first goal for Liverpool. Ooh, Fernando. Did you know it was his middle name, by the way? But anyway, I'll go to you on the 4-4-2, and we can go back to Luis Diaz and Mo Salah.
In all honesty, I wouldn't have noticed that we did go to a 4-4-2 as quickly as if Thiago hadn't come on and said mouth 4, put up 4 fingers, 4, and then 2. I was like, oh, so it looks like we're going to go to a 4-4-2. I think we've been saying it for ages that Origi works best with a strike partner. Like, he's wasted on the wing for the most part. If he has someone in and around him that he can dump the ball off to, because he's more of a traditional number 9. He's a big guy, likes to hold it up, will run the channels for you. I think it took us a little while to figure it out because Diaz and him were almost tripping over each other for periods of that. And it was nice. I think that tied in nicely to Diaz too. I think he was a little bit at sea for a while, but once he got his legs under him, you saw the result. That ball from Henderson though was sumptuous. What was it, 32 or 34 passes? Everyone touched the ball except Origi in the lead up to that. And I was reading somewhere, I think that's the most number of passes before a goal since they started taking records since 2004.
City, you're right.
Yeah,
we can do that too.
Yeah, I like the 4-4-2, but again, it's so personnel driven. Because we're going to require a lot of the guys on the outside to do work, to a lot of doggies and a lot of donkey work to get back up and to be there as the extra attacker. And I think it took us a little while to get it right, but when we did, it was like I felt like we were unplayable. And again, it was so I'm wondering if this is something that we've been working on. I have no idea when the hell Klopp has the time to do it. Maybe like they're doing it virtually, like before everyone goes to bed, so everyone's playing FIFA together. I don't know. But it was I like formation changes because I think that it now gives people something to think about, and I'm super excited to. And I think the Anfield rep mentioned this today. That Diaz provides a problem and a solution almost all in one, because in order to get the most out of him, I think they said that, like, I don't remember anyone getting as much like the keys to the city, so to speak, as much as Diaz has in these first, like, because his positional discipline has not been quite what you'd expect from a wide player for us in a 4-3-3. You'd see him like basically on the right-hand side, right next to Salah in some instances when he was supposed to be out left. So, but I think that uncertainty and that chaos that it creates is a blessing and a curse for us. So I see him. He's going to pop up and score a couple of goals for us, and I think that a lot of them will be more scrappy than he seems to me like he's going to be in the right man, in the right place at the right time, kind of a little bit like Jota. And he's one of the guys that likes to advance the ball through dribbling. Like he's not like the first 30 minutes he was. I think he tore the arse out of it a little bit. I was like, okay, mate, just like knock it off and try and go at him once. And if you can't get it past him the first time, knock it around and then try again later on. But every ball he got, he was trying to beat everyone. I was like, oh. But I'm having said all that, I'm super excited to see him play for us, and I wouldn't be too upset if he did play for us in the Carabao Cup this weekend. Don't get me wrong; I think that Bobby and Jota will be welcome too, but I wouldn't be upset to see Diaz get the start.
His pressing is phenomenal too. I mean, I'm just like, I don't remember you pressing that much when you were at Porto. Maybe he did. I didn't watch that much Porto, but he presses the hell out of the ball.
I think
Or
our
the
rocket
opponents.
science. I'm sure our rocket scientists figured something out about his ability to press, even if he wasn't actually pressing. So one thing I found fascinating, and I'll go to you next, Sean, is that we have what. So I think obviously we've watched this team for a long time, and I think we kind of having like had to talk about it. We know a bit about formations. I was entirely confused about what when I read 4-4-2. I'm like, what? Because honestly, it looked to me anything other than a rigid 4-4-2 formation. I mean, at times, like I think someone said Tsimikas was the most advanced player on the left-hand side. So if anything, it was a 2-4-4, but it could have been a 2-2-3. What it was mad, and it's no wonder
a lot of math
could not cope with that. Given yes, so Sean, we'd be delighted to hear about the Syrian wedding. But if you did get a chance to watch the Liverpool game, we'd also be keen to hear about that too.
So yeah, so as Paul said, I went to it was a lot of fun, interesting wedding over the weekend. A friend of my wife's, from Syria, so it was like Syrian customs, and it was exciting. I don't know how else to describe it. That would take too many words. But it was a lot of fun. But as a result, I missed the second half. So I mean, I only have the first half to go on and what I've heard about the second half. But I mean, I guess what I heard was that Thiago came on and we basically went to a double pivot, and then at that point I felt like we were dominating the game prior to that in the first half. It just like wasn't quite there. We were like one pass away, and the narrative was like that it was a close game, and I was like, what game are you watching? We should have been up 2 or 3-0 at half, and they didn't really. I think they had one chance the entire game that was halfway decent. Pookie had one, I guess, on like the 15th minute, and the goal they got was a total fluke. I mean, I missed that, but it's just a weird deflection. Ali had no chance, and he was clearly going to save it. It actually made me ask the question, I don't know the rule on this, but how do they determine an own goal? Because it seemed pretty clear that he would have saved it if not for the deflection. But I'm sure there's some reason why that's determined. But no, I mean, I was happy to see. I saw the highlights of the goals. I don't think there was enough made about Salah's goal, partially because it was just hilarious how he played around with the keeper and put him on his ass and then passed it into the corner of the net for a go-ahead goal. Just the calmness. But Ali's pass was unreal. And so I mean, it's another good win. But yeah, I thought on the first half, from what I watched, I felt like people were being kind of too negative, at least in the moment. I mean, I felt like we were going to win the match, all along. So I wasn't too worried.
Yeah. It was by the way, it was a bad weekend for Liverpool center backs and deflected goals. I'm just not going to leave it there.
Oh, is that the women's team?
Yeah.
Oh.
3 own goals. I felt so bad for her.
Oh no.
Michaela Moore. Yeah, three own goals in 39 minutes, I think, or something like that against the US.
Oh, not playing for Liverpool.
No, it was New Zealand versus the US.
I was feeling
Liverpool center back.
One of those moments though where it's like Liverpool's men team to have a title challenge means the women's team have to drop off. It's like because in 2014 they won the league, obviously, and the men's team didn't win the league. So good. Well, I'm sorry for her, but I'm less concerned now.
Is that 3 or 4 that have come off Matip this year? Because I remember there was the one, the De Bruyne one that was
in City. Yeah.
I think he's had another one.
He's getting up there. I actually looked up the stats. You would be proud of me, Sean. And the most own goals among Liverpool center backs is it's a tie between Carragher and Skirtle. 7 goals.
Skirtle. Because there was one
goals.
season Skirtle scored like 6, but he also had like 6 own goals or something.
Yeah, it's 7. So I think Joel is getting up there too.
you should also be. There should be some comparison there because Carragher played 700 games. Skirtle did not play anywhere near that number. Just to give Jamie a bit of a break. I want to do one last round on kind of what happened. Then I want to talk a little bit about City, and then look ahead. So pick a topic. Let's say for me, there's a bunch of things here. It's like Salah, 150 goals, only Roger Hunt in Liverpool's history, who played some of his time in the second tier, by the way, scored 150 goals more quickly. He's ahead of Rush. He's ahead of the other king, Sir King Kenny, that is. He's ahead of Fowler and that other guy who played for Man United. I mean, just absolutely unbelievable. Still don't think. I mean, so I was watching a Premier League show earlier, and some person who will remain nameless because I don't want to call anyone else talked about Harry Kane being the greatest striker in the world right now. Oh. I'm like, what?
He had one good game. God.
So someone could talk about Salah. We can talk about Thiago Alcantara. I feel like on Saturday it felt like there should have been a law against bringing him off the bench. That was really unfair. That feels like a topic. And then I felt like Mane's goal felt a bit like 2019-20. Like conjuring up the image, even though a lot of people seem to be very ready to write him off and send him somewhere else very soon. Sadio, where do you want to go? It sounds like you're on Sadio Mane already.
I am. That's my guy right there. Yeah, I mean, so Sadio, it was a little bit of a head scratcher when after Diaz's first match, where some pundits were like, "Oh yeah, Sadio needs to be at bench now," and Diaz, should start. And I'm just like, okay, this guy just won, the African Cup of Nations for his country, MVP of the tournament, scored the winning penalty. This is the guy that started this whole thing, with Liverpool, the club era, basically. He was his, big first signing. I still remember that first goal against Arsenal and that match, actually. I understand he had dips and forms here and there, but who doesn't? But I just feel like he's very underappreciated. He actually just surpassed Barnes.
Wow.
The
goals.
the number of goals. John Barnes, and
yeah.
I've already been talking about how John Barnes is underappreciated, anyways, and this guy just surpassed him. So I don't know what it is, and I'm not going to speculate, but I truly feel like Sadio is underappreciated, and he should be appreciated more. What he brings is just on a different level. And even when he has a bad match, I know it hurts sometimes when he has he's in front of the goal and he shanks it or whatever. But it's the other little stuff that he does, his defensive work, his work ethic, his pressing. It's just not a lot of people or forwards do that. And I still think he's in his prime. And I think he can actually get better now with all these new faces in our attack. So yeah, much love to Sadio. He is going to be around, and I hope he sticks around for as long as possible.
So several years ago, I would have said, "What a foolish statement." He's there with John Barnes, but actually, in terms of his contribution, I mean, there are some stats around which show that he kind of dipped in a lot of categories last year, and he's made his way back somewhat. But I do think, I think Daz was making this point in the agenda, like him through the middle, that seems like a really interesting thing to explore because he's good in the air.
He played there a couple times for us before in the past, Paul, and it's something that I've always wondered why we didn't do more of, because to me he's really well suited to play the 9. He's very good in the air. He's great at hold up play, and he can bring all the same things that he brings on the wing. And honestly, as he ages, like if he does lose a step, like he can still play the 9. He doesn't, if he doesn't quite have the pace that he had in the past or the one-on-one, not to take anything away, because I agree with Haitham. I think in a lot of ways, Mane's underappreciated, and I think Salah is also underappreciated, but I think Salah often overshadows like the player that Mane's been for us too. And but anyway, sorry to jump in there, but like I've thought that for a couple of years now. Like why don't we try, Mane in the 9 a little more? So I'd like to see more of it.
So in terms of like him not getting his due, or the reports of his demise being greatly exaggerated, I don't think it's necessarily just us, but it definitely applies to Liverpool Football Club in general, more specifically, that it's almost like the Weather Channel. It can't just be a fucking cold front. It's got to be a polar fucking vortex that's blowing through. So every time like someone misses a sitter or hasn't scored in 2 matches, it's like the sky has absolutely, like hot lava is bursting from the earth. I think it's because you need an agenda. We can't just simply be a good team. And you see it from some of our top red buddies too. Like, we got to get rid of him. Like he passed a ball that didn't go directly to feet. He's fucking washed up. Get rid of him. I love Sadio Mane just as a human being. The fact that he said that he didn't want the club to make a big deal out of him being an AFCON winner because he thought it might be in bad taste because Mo, his teammate, was on the losing end of that. It's like there's not enough superlatives to describe what a fantastic human being he is and what a fantastic footballer he is. That most of my limbs would have like just turned to dust if I had have attempted to do what he did up there. Like I probably would have spontaneously combusted. It was an unbelievable finish. I will say this: like I thought all 3 of our goals were going to be offsides. I was like, I'm not getting my hopes up here. I know some ball bag somewhere is going to say that like someone didn't cut his fucking fingernails and that was offsides. And like I just had a feeling, and then. But because all 3 of the goals were spectacular, all 3 of them were amazing goals in their own way. Like I don't know if you watched the Alisson's clearance, he actually ends up on his arse after he kicks that. We're just a fucking good football team. There's nothing else really to say. Like it's 8 on the bounce. It's like we probably have the loudest footsteps in world football right now. And I don't even think it's close. Yeah. And we're at the point now where everyone is back, bar 2 guys, and I hate to say like that air of invincibility is starting to like pad us back up, but it's starting to feel that way, and I get all giggly and girly thinking about it, much like when Thiago pings a ball 30 yards. It's just filth, just filth.
Yeah, it's amazing how quickly everybody's like forgotten how good we were for the 2.5 years prior to last season. And it's like, I don't know, it's easy to just write last season off, but at the same time, like it's such a fluky, weird season to begin with, and then we had all the injuries. If you kind of remove the middle 4 months of the season basically, and you just look at this team going back to 2018, like we're either the best team in the world or we're easily top 3, over that period of time. So it's easy to take that for granted, I guess.
And there were actually this weekend, it was weird. There were a whole load of like pundits talking about like, oh, the race is back on. And I don't know, we all were bought into there was a chance, but one of the things that there wasn't a race was, oh, they're just not as good as Manchester City. And it's like, yeah, that's not true. I mean, in my world. And now all of a sudden, it was weird actually. I would have looked at more articles this week because we've seen them about like if Liverpool drop points, they're like, oh, they're just not as relentless as City, blah, blah, blah. There was not an article I could find in a serious newspaper this weekend that talked about like maybe City are not quite as invulnerable as you think they are. It was very weird. It was very weird.
Well, think about all the mung rags that had us finishing outside of the top 4.
Well, we got no depth.
Almost everyone did. Almost,
right. Yeah. Except for Ian Wright, right? He was always Anyway, but we had no depth, right? We had like the drop off, blah blah blah. Yeah.
Is it everybody just forgot or discounted the impact that losing like Virgil and everybody else last year had, and all of a sudden, our players weren't as good, even though half of them had COVID, and it's just stupid. And to be honest with you, we probably wouldn't be behind City now, or might not be behind City now if we didn't have a bunch of players out with COVID during that stretch around Christmas.
Right. And that was one thing I found weird this week. It's like, oh, I did. One of the reasons I didn't think Liverpool were up there is because they had that really difficult patch in December. It's like, you mean the spell where we had all those COVID cases? That spell?
Van Dijk
and there wasn't a single mention of the conversation. So.
It's inexplicable. Who knew? How was this possible? Let's take a forensic deep dive into this. No, you assholes. It is a fucking pandemic raging outside, and it got us again. Here's A, here's B. There's a very short line between A and B, you muppets.
Yeah, details don't sell headlines. So.
Yeah.
It was like last year, and there, occasionally you'd hear somebody talk about how important Van Dijk was to our attack and how important our defense was to our attack, but it was never like broken down. Like, our system is basically reliant on playing that high line. And in order to play that high line, we need Van Dijk and other quality center backs. And, when we didn't have that, we basically couldn't play the way that we're set up to play. And there was just like never any discussion about that last year. It was just bad champions, all that crap. But again, like if you take out that period of like November through February or so, like there's been really no change over the last 4 years of how good this team is.
Can I just, so I don't think we need enough credit to Mo for his 150 goals, but I'm sure we'll talk about him again. Thiago, but I think we feel like we should tilt towards City and your thoughts about them. Few things I'll lead off with. The last time they played Tottenham at the Etihad with a crowd was at the beginning of the 2019 season, which I think I think I'm right in saying this was the day that we separated from them because we'd beaten Southampton away and they did not beat Tottenham, and they never caught up with us in the 2019-20 season. And then of course we had City. We know this were much better without crowds. We had our injuries. Now we're back to crowds. Where are you with City? Because I think the 2018-19 City, I still think would be a huge threat to us. I don't think this team, personal perspective, the numbers aren't that great. And Sean's probably looked into this more than I have, but the XG per shot is declining, has declined in 2022, very interestingly. Guardiola looked like he'd lost it yesterday in the way that we've seen a couple of times before when they stopped winning things. They had very few big chances in the game against Tottenham for all the possession, 72%. So I'll start with you, Haitham, and go with whichever angle. But what are your thoughts about City? They're clearly still 6 points ahead of us. We have a game in hand. We have to go there. I don't see them winning all of the other games, but tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the way I view them did not change after this past loss per se. I still think and you guys might disagree with me. I think they're the best team in Europe, whatever you want to call it. It's just the football that they play is, I know it's hard for you guys to hear this. And again, I just go by what I see. I know there are going to be stats and XG listed and all of that stuff, but just based on what I see, I feel like they're really, really good. And this defeat from Saturday, I don't know, from this past weekend,
it's Saturday.
They got outplayed. I mean, someone figured out how to deal with them. I mean, they had, 79% of the possession?
72, I think it was. Yeah.
72. Okay.
Yeah.
So but they couldn't do anything with it. Which happened. I mean, it's happened to us. If you look back a few weeks ago when we played Leicester, I mean, we had a lot of possession, not a whole lot of chances, all of that stuff. So it happens to teams. But I still think it's gonna be neck to neck. They might lose more points between now and May, but I think it's also possible for us. Just if you want to be a little bit balanced. So, and I want it to be a close fight because I enjoy those more than, let's say, the win and not the way we the fact that we won the league in 2019, 2020, but just or 2020, 2021, I forgot.
1920.
1920. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I like close fights. I just again, I think we talked about this in the past. I hate the way the Bundesliga is, La Liga, at times, when there's only one team running with it. And I think, I truly believe it's going to be a close fight until the last day of the season. Do I think it's City is faltering and all of that stuff? I'm not buying into that yet until I see them. I see a couple more teams doing exactly what Tottenham did to them, in the next few weeks or whatever.
So, quickly, last game of the season, we played Wolves at home, which was who we played at the end of the 2019 season. Well, we won the Champions League. I don't know if that tells us anything. Sean, do you have a couple of minutes before you have to leave? Just to add a few things in on your perspective on City.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. On City, I would agree with Haitham. I don't think the one loss necessarily changes anything. I think it gives us a chance, but I also wouldn't flip it to the point where there's still heavy favorites. Like if you look at any of the odds or any of those things, they definitely have a little bit of an easier run in than we do. But having said that, I mean, it's not like they're completely invincible. They're not as good as they were, a few years ago. Even the year that we won the league, I think, and then the year prior to that when we both were, we finished with 98 points and they had 92, 99 or whatever. They always had a much higher XG and better XG difference than we did. And this year, that's not the case.
Right.
But that's largely because, ironically, that their defensively, they've not been as good. And I think that's really what it comes down to. I still don't think that their center backs and goalkeepers are as solid as ours are. And that, so, their midfield and attack are dominant. In my opinion, they probably have the best.
There's a ball possession. Right.
Well, it's ball possession, and it's just there's the way they play, and I think this is part of the reason why a lot of people are like, teams come after us, they don't go after City, which is true. But the way they play is that they kind of set up. I think that I might have this slightly off, but they set up with sort of a double pivot where they pull Cancelo in next to Rodri, and they basically line up with a bunch of interchangeable parts in the front. The final third. And so they have their front three, and then they have De Bruyne and Gundogan kind of mix in. And so it just makes it really difficult for the defense to track. They just have a different style of play than we do. I mean, not that one's better than the other, but they're a very good team. I think it's Liverpool, Man City, and Bayern, probably the three best teams in the world right now, if they happen to beat us by a few points to the title, we're going up against a very, very good team. But, having said that, we're 3 points back if we can beat Leeds. And that is what it is. I mean, any team, can choke on their day, and they have some tough games coming up. They have Derby against Man United and some other tough games where they could drop points coming up too.
Everton.
I don't expect anything from Everton, especially after I just noticed today the result against Southampton. Man, I just saw the 2-0, and then I actually looked at some of the results today, and I was like, wow, they really got pounded by Southampton. Like that wasn't even a close game, you know. So I don't think Everton's going in the right direction. I know some of their fans are hopeful of that. But
so just to be clear, I do think Everton will get battered by City because they'll do their 5-0 thing. United, I'm not sure. I think their issue is going to be against teams like Palace and Wolves, who are really well organized because of the XG problem, right? They don't create as many chances anymore. And clearly, if you saw the game on Saturday afternoon, you will have your like evidence point number one that Ruben Diaz is not Virgil van Dijk.
Yeah. I mean, that's so overblown.
Well, he won Footballer of the Year last year. That's
I'm not sure he's even the best center back on their team. You know, like I mean, he's so overhyped to me. But no, the Man United thing. The reason I say that is because Man United has actually gotten some results against City the last few years, even with Ole at the wheel. You know, I mean, they seem to get up for that match. So I don't
almost. They are not a very fun team to watch. I used to love watching Barcelona when Pep coached because they just, it wasn't death by football. It was almost like mass murder by football. Like it was just like, but this just the way that City plays is just, it just feels, it's almost sterile perfectionism a little bit. And I'm with Haitham. Like I like a little bit of grit. I like some sand in my eye when I'm watching football matches. Like something that's left to chance, and it just doesn't feel like City leaves much to chance until they absolutely do. And I think that I said in our group thread, I was like, if Spurs can ping this ball around a little bit quicker, they'll pull them apart. And I think as soon as I texted that to you guys, they scored their second goal. It was a passage of like 4 or 5 passes, and most of them were either diagonal or moving forward, and they picked them apart. It's almost that they've lulled themselves into a sense of security like this. They'd ratchet up the pressure without really having much to show for it. So they thought, and sometimes we're guilty of this too, like we're going to score, we're going to score, and they don't. And then all of a sudden, because things aren't going as swimmingly as they usually do, it's almost like a little bit of panic sets in. And I think that Paul spoke to that about the way that Pep reacted to it. It's like it's kind of. It sucks that we've got to the point now where it's perfection or nothing, because we're going to drop points. There's no way we're winning the rest of our games on the way in. We just won't. We have 13 games left now. Is it 13? We played 25.
13.
Yeah. There's no chance that we win all 13. I'll go out and say that as much as I'd like for us to do it, we just won't.
Yeah.
And. We're competing on a bunch of different fronts that City are no longer on.
Yeah.
So I think that the saying that because they got beaten, but Spurs beat them at the beginning of the season too, didn't they? First game?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not unprecedented. I think that City they'll tie the likes of Palace. If you remember correctly, I think it was that dodgy handball they got against Wolves is the only reason they got bailed out in that game.
Yeah,
I think it was like it hit him in the armpit, and they said it was a penalty.
So,
and I think you've got down in here like City has 7 penalties.
7 penalties, 11 games. Yeah,
actually, and that's a good point too, because that's going to sort of artificially boost their XG too, Paul.
Yeah.
You know, if they're getting all those penalties. So
there's something they're not quite there, I think. And when Guardiola loses it, which he clearly did at the end of yesterday's game, I think that's always a good sign for us.
I don't think it's weird. I don't think they have a lot of leaders in the team.
No,
you know, they had when they were really good, they had company. Honestly, even like Fernandinho, David Silva, like those guys. I guess like even Yaya Toure going further back, but you know, they don't have anyone like that in this team that I can think of.
They didn't replace company. They didn't. No, they did not replace company.
They've tried to multiple times. God, how much money have they spent on that defense?
So
between the fullbacks and everything else.
So many things going on here. Sean, I know you need to leave, but I'll leave the City conversation with one thing, which is Guardiola has only once won the league in a tight race. Like all his time in Spain, Germany, and England. It was the season that Company scored that goal against Leicester, which I think was probably the defining moment for them.
18-19.
Yeah, if you don't count the Keita penalty that Atkinson didn't give at Anfield against Leicester, not that I hold a grudge, that might have been significant also. But yeah, so generally it's been a procession. So for him to be like, we should be miles ahead now, and we're not. That could be an interesting moment in his season. So let's leave it there. I know we need to go. We haven't even talked about the upcoming week with game on Wednesday against Leeds and the Carabao League Cup final to talk about. Jordan, you need to go, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna hop off.
Okay, all right.
But it's been fun.
Great to see you. All right.
Yeah.
So let's give it a once around on.
Christ, I thought he'd never leave.
It's going to give us the XG from 27-18 on Company's City. Yeah, I don't feel afraid of them actually. That's my this weekend, which I think I did at some point in the last 9 months.
We'll win that game, and if we win or lose that game, it'll be the midfield.
I think if we have Thiago, Fabinho, and
Hendo.
anyone else, frankly. Yeah.
As long as the midfield names all end in O, either by actual name or by nickname, we'll be fine.
Elliot. All right. So quickly, week ahead. It actually always feels, to me, always feels more interesting to kind of look back and dissect than to anticipate what goes ahead, because I'm not very good at anticipating. I expect, so go for you Haitham for the final efforts on this. I expect us to have quite a strong team against Leeds, although I'm afraid for Leeds because they played a really intense game yesterday on a really heavy pitch. And
they lost another player.
Oh, they did? Who did they lose?
Yeah, the kid that went off for the head injury.
Oh my goodness. Oh yeah. So
Cook.
Yeah. So I think overconfidence may be our biggest barrier here, because I think it's going to be quite a strong team, right? He rested a lot of people the weekend. You don't want to give him too long off. So I'm assuming Fabinho, Trent, Robbo, they'll all be back. What are your thoughts about Leeds? And then leading into that, the League Cup final, which I really want to call the Rumbelows League Cup final, which is
Coca-Cola Cup,
for all the kids out there.
The Wood Cup.
Yeah, Wednesday.
I got my first stereo from Rumbelows. That's my connection. So.
Wednesday, I think you said it all, Paul. Leeds is decimated with injuries. I think they had a shot of their bench, not the bench, but the people that were sitting behind the bench, and it was like all their Class A players basically sitting there. So I'm not sure. And on top of that, they just play one way, which is, I think as you call it, go hung or whatever, hungo, hungo football. So yeah, I think, it's going to be, I don't want to say an easy match, but it's kind of predictable at this point how it's going to go. And again, I think he's going to play a lot of the people that will, or the players that will start on Sunday. And maybe, if we have like a good cushion or whatever, he'll start bringing in, some people from the bench just to give them some rest until Sunday. For Sunday, to me, it feels like it is actually, it's a tiebreaker because we drew twice this season with Chelsea. I'm looking forward to it. I think our form is definitely better than theirs at this point. I think I watched the highlights for their match from the weekend against Palace, and it wasn't a good one. I think
like 4 seconds, was it?
Yeah, Lukaku had one of the worst records in the Premier League as a 9 or whatever. He had 7 touches the whole match, 2 touches the first half, including
kickoff.
The kickoff. Yeah. So, and I don't know. I mean, Tuchel, the two matches we played them, played a lot of stupid. Just of course, the first match at Anfield, they basically just parked the bus after the red card.
Yeah.
So we couldn't even do anything after that or create a lot of chances. The second one at Stamford Bridge, it was what it was. So it's just, I feel like there's this stupid chess match with Tuchel every time he plays us in particular. And then every other match that he plays is just like, oh, let me just, mix all these players and see what comes or whatever. But yeah, I'm just, I hope we win Sunday. I really want us to win Sunday just because I have a lot of Chelsea fans in my ears all the time. And would love like a thrashing, as Daz would call it. So we'll see. Based on form, I think we should be able to win easily but I know it's a cup final. Strong possibility it's going to go to penalties, all of that stuff. But I'm hoping it doesn't have to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm thinking back to, we've played them a lot in finals actually over the years. Like, so the one thing I'm taking back to is 2005, we lost the League Cup final to them. Then we went on to beat them in the semi-final of the Champions League and win the Champions League. I'd sign up for that right now, frankly, as an option. But obviously, I'd like a trophy next weekend. I've got a T-shirt from Hatscar for a badge, which is called The Wall, which has got all of the trophies. And I'm this season, there's a possibility of changing the numbers on 4 of those trophies. I'd settle for 2. I'd settle for 1. I'd settle for 1. So, Daz, what are your thoughts? I mean, I don't know if you want to say anything about Leeds, but Chelsea.
Leeds,
nothing to like about that club.
I don't think Leeds, to Haitham's point, knows anything other than 100% effort at all times. So I'd expect Bielsa to have them up as much as he can, despite how grueling this weekend's match was, which we'll know we've been in a game, regardless of what the outcome is. I think was it Elliot got injured in the corresponding fixture last year, right? Yeah. So I think it comes down to us.
We won 3-0, right?
I'd like to see us get business done early. Then he can pull key personnel off. But and I think we've had like really good. I mean, we mentioned this earlier in the show. We've had really good success with our substitution. So I wouldn't mind us. If we are going to put them to bed, do it early so that Klopp can make his changes on 60, because Chelsea's in France, or they're playing Lille, right? Is it at Stamford Bridge? Or is it over? It's in France.
Oh, I'm not sure.
I think it's in France because some of their unvaccinated players are actually not going to be able to make it.
Oh, so we're going to find out who their unvaccinated players are? Oh,
yeah. I think so.
Yeah, Leeds always gives me pause just because they seem to be the type of squad that likes to come at us, and oftentimes it's to their own detriment. That they'll throw, knowing full well that they're going to take punches, they'll continue to throw haymakers. So I'd like to say that their injuries and then how grueling this last match was will take a toll, but they'll put maximum effort into trying to beat us at Anfield on Wednesday. To your point, I think that most of the guys will come back because Klopp's a big rhythm guy, and we seem to do really well with 2 games per week, specifically with the personnel. So you're right. I think he'll go hard because he's going to want to make those adjustments now before Sunday, before the cup final. I don't like playing Chelsea. I don't think I ever really have, and it never fills me with excitement to play Chelsea. they always just seem to be like a spoiler squad.
Yeah.
But having said that, I did enjoy the game. The Fat Frank's last game against us there. That was very very fulfilling.
Oh, when we won the league, when they got the trophy. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but he yelled at Klopp. That's what he got the yelled at Klopp trophy.
So a couple of quick fact checks. Chelsea are at home tomorrow against Leeds.
Stamford Bridge. I just saw it.
Yeah. So,
well, we're gonna
even in France isn't that far away. It's not like they're traveling to Kazakhstan.
We won't find out who the unvaccinated players are though this week
until 2 weeks from
right.
now.
One other fact check, and we'll come back to you. I talked about this earlier. Ibrahima Konate. He was born May 25th, 1999. So he is still he's just 22. He turns 23 this summer. And of course, 25th of May, for anyone who's followed us for a while, is a celebrated day, given that's when we won the, I think we definitely won the 77 final. Was that the Istanbul final as well? It was 25th of May? 25th of May, all the Kopites will be singing. Yes, Vatican bells, they will be ringing. Sorry, off on a slight detour. Anyway, Ibrahima Konate is destined to win a Champions League final with Liverpool, obviously, because of the date of his birth.
I honestly think that we'll get another English team in the quarterfinal.
Yeah, who cares? Honestly, at this point, I don't know. Let's hope it's Man United, obviously, but I don't think those other teams are as good as us.
Oh, did you see Luke Shaw gobbing off about how they could potentially win the Champions League? Like, mate, go take a bath. So stay up the bath salts.
So I think he's looking to recover his reputation, because I think most Man United fans think he's the leak in the dressing room about how bad things are. There was the Anfield Rap had a guy on from United We Stand, and he seems to be blaming Luke Shaw for most of the disruption in the dressing room.
He was trading secrets for pies,
something like that. Yes, because actually that's what he said. He's like, it was 70 minutes gone in the game against Middlesbrough, and he's puffing and puffing. It's like, what kind of professional is that? Well, that's the pies. And anyway, yes, we've gone off here. Chelsea, Sunday, 11:30 kickoff here in the US. We will be back to a couple of things we're going to talk about before we leave, but we will be back next week after the League Cup final against the team from London. Two things.
Various states of disrepair.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If we've won, I don't know how that's going to work out. But anyway, a couple of our like previous themes. I just did want to go over. This week there were a couple of only Salah moments, which I think we talked about, and turns out only Jared Bowen, only Mohamed Salah has had more EPL goal contributions than Mo Salah. It feels like insert name here. But anyway, the key theme is only Mo Salah. And then on our penalty watch, you mentioned this earlier, City, 7 penalties in 11 games. There was a handball in the Arsenal-Brentford game, was not given a penalty, seemed very similar to the one they got yesterday or on Saturday. Not a mention of the 2 fouls on Mane in the penalty area. It feels like it's okay to kick and punch and do whatever to Mane and Salah, and it's never going to be a penalty. Talking about this, hoping that's different in the League Cup final on Sunday. Haitham, Daz, thanks so much for joining us. If you enjoyed the podcast, please share it with a friend. Follow us on Twitter. We only tweet and retweet from sources we think are credible. We didn't complain about any sources this week, so can't talk about anyone in particular. Thank you.